Who do you think won the vice presidential debate?
Depends on how you define winning.
Well, how do you define winning? What do you care about in these debates?
I care about people that are adhering to the truth, but that what I just said there means fucking nothing because everybody wears that statement as a fucking aesthetic. So anything that I say like that should be the biggest red flag to never trust anything that somebody says. But I mean, whoever's like generally staying as fact-based as possible, I think is good. And whoever's making better arguments towards the other person to counter what they're saying, I think is good.
Who do you think had the better arguments? Who do you think was more convincing?
I would probably say Walz because I tend to agree on that side more politically, but it's so hard to have like a meaningful policy debate when conservatives can just say anything they want. And now we're kind of like we've escaped policy in the United States and it's just this forever, war on culture issues. So
what's the most egregious sin that was committed in the debate in your view? Something that someone said that you thought that's just not true, or that's ridiculous, or that's super misleading?
Vance's refusal to accept the results of the 2020 election should immediately and permanently disqualify him from holding any office ever.
Yeah, he refused to directly answer the question. In fact, I watched the vice presidential debate recently, and I made a note every time I noticed a direct question not being directly answered.
Oh, Vance, I think, avoided almost everything, but he did it really well. He's a very good speaker. I think that he came out on top in terms of like public perception.
Right.
Absolutely. He's a very good politician, very good speaker. And he's a smart guy. He's smart because he was saying a few years ago that Trump was Hitler. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah, it was a horrible administration. They didn't accomplish much. These are all Vance's words. Yeah.
If it's of interest to the viewer, I have the list here of the questions that were not directly answered. Do the candidates support a preemptive strike on Iran by Israel? No direct answer. Does Vance agree with Trump that climate change is a hoax? Was Walz in China for the Tiananmen Square massacre? He did eventually answer the question, but had to be pressed by the moderator. Would Vance support separating children from their parents in deportation efforts? Not directly answered. He did not say yes or no. He simply said, well, they're already being separated. There was no yes or no. Where will Vance specifically seize federal land to build houses? Where specifically? Again, just didn't get an answer despite being pressed by the moderators. And of course, did Trump lose the election? Vance just says something like, well, we had our problems with it, of course. You can go and look at what we said about that. Why is it so impossible to get a direct answer out of politicians?
I think that anytime you have a question in the real world about why people are doing what they're doing, this is a people skill, a psychology thing. One thing that I hate is when people say, oh my God, this person is so irrational. Like this person's behavior doesn't make any sense. And usually they're pointing towards people that are behaving in ways that we would find disfavorable. We'd think, oh, what's going on with this person, right? Maybe you see a kid screaming in a store, for a candy bar and he's screaming. It's like, oh my God, like what is wrong with this kid, right? But eventually he gets the candy bar. And this is true of a lot of people with maladaptive behaviors interpersonally or the workplace or, whatever. You look at a person, you think that they're being irrational, but they're not. They've learned this behavior and there's usually a reward for this particular behavior. If you're Vance and you're on stage and you're being asked questions that in reality you can't really provide a good answer for, why would you ever answer that honestly? Especially if you know in these formats that the moderators won't press you because news stations, like a lot of these cringe online content creators, are obsessed with trying to remain fair and nonpartisan. So none of these stations will ever press Trump or Vance anywhere near as hard as they should be because they don't want to come off as being mean to conservatives or too biased, which is a waste of time because they're always going to come off that way anyway.